All right. So first, to start off, will you just introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Curtis Burnham, and Jen and I, we have been married for 30 years. We have 4 kids, and we have been with Rain Ministries for about 18 years and leading EuroQuest for 14, I believe, 13 or 14 years.
So over 14 years, I can imagine a lot has changed from like what ministry looked like then and how you engaged in it, maybe even what you've learned over the course of the 14 years. So what did it look like then and maybe what does it look like now?
I think back then, especially in Europe, you had a lot more freedoms to go out and do street performance, which is a big part of the culture. And that's the one thing I really emphasize is that we're not doing something by going out and doing street performances that's weird or crazy, because in Europe that is normal, and that's just part of the culture there. And there's street performers in any big city you go to. And so when we first started doing this, it was no big deal to walk into a city and set up in a big park or a big square and start performing. Everyone was doing it. And little by little, though, you started seeing less and less of it. Europe started having noise laws, and you had to get permits, and it started getting more and more difficult to do that kind of ministry. And so I started learning early on that I got to be creative in thinking about different ways of getting students involved in ministry in Europe, because there's so many amazing opportunities.
So you talked a little bit about how we started with street evangelism. We're having to adapt. So like what's the vision for ministry in Europe moving forward? And because sort of in that, like, give us your sales pitch. If there's
yeah. I always tell students, and I love what we do as a ministry. Royal servants, our desire is expose students to a need that the world has for Christ. Europe has crazy needs for Christ. Just has all kinds of needs for spiritual needs. It's lost. It really is. And there's places you go that you sense the hopelessness. But in that, we want to equip and train students on how to live out their faith, how to share the gospel, how to engage people in conversations, and just how to live that out in a cross-cultural setting. And in all that, as we're doing this, we're igniting them a passion for God. So my sales pitch to people say, look, you're going to go over and you're going to have an opportunity to see people that need Jesus, have encounters with them, and you're going to get a chance to engage them in conversations. You're going to have incredible opportunities to see a place that's lost, that needs Christ, but at the same time, this place seems like they don't need anything. They've got everything, but they don't have Jesus. And you're going to have an opportunity to see that, and it's going to change your heart. You're going to be broken for these people in a whole new way. And so to be able to take students over to do that, the part that I love the most, because I have a lot of wing it in me, and you guys know that about me. I love it when we have to figure out what are we going to do today, because we can't perform, we can't do this. So right away, I started creating opportunities and creating different ideas of how to go out and engage people in conversations, from serving people in the streets to going to restaurants and serving. We do our quiet time now. We always do our quiet time in the city, like at a coffee shop or at a park. Any opportunity to be out where the people are at. And I always tell the students, you know what, this is what Jesus did. Jesus didn't run out of synagogue and say, hey, come to the synagogue, I'll be here. No, he was out with the people.
Does Europe need missionaries? Does Europe need people to share the gospel?
Wow. Well, first of all, Europe is probably the least evangelized continent in the world to this day still. And especially now in this culture, in the culture today and in the world today, with so many different cultures living in Europe, the opportunities are endless. And so, yeah, there is a huge need for the gospel. The cool thing is Europeans are very open to talk about spiritual things. I would say they're probably more open to talk about spiritual things than Americans are. The difference is the response of them accepting that is very, very slim. They will have the conversation, They're willing to talk about it. They're interested, but to make that decision to jump ship from their philosophy or their quote religion, it's hard. It takes time. So we just tell students, you know what, we are planting seeds, and the Holy Spirit is going to be the one that is going to use those conversations down the road. And I can tell you some cool stories of how I've seen God use that. Um, in people's lives that we've shared with, and then later on heard that they came to Christ.
Will you tell one if it comes to like a
Yeah,
specific
yeah. So I can tell you two really cool ones. So we were for 3 years in Holland. We were in Utrecht, Holland for 3 years. We committed to help plant a church. So EuroQuest for the first 2 weeks, we'd go to Utrecht, Holland. We did a church plant. We helped with the church plant. We worked in schools. We did all kinds of things. But at one place, we were doing ministry at this school, and we were talking to people and doing questionnaires and asking questions. And we had a conversation with a lady. Well, our students got to share the gospel with her. She got to see our performance, and we met her in 2008. And she said, last year I saw you guys. I talked with your students, and I'm now a follower of Jesus. And I'm now attending the church that you guys are help planting. That's one really cool story. Another cool story is in 2012 or 11, we were in Slovenia, outside of Maribor, camping. This really cool campsite. We had been up until midnight that night doing performances at the campsite. They're having a big performance. They're having like a competition and we got to be a part of this performance competition they're doing. And we were having conversations with all these people. And we got to share the gospel, like I said, until late into the night. And the next year, we were in Rovinj, Croatia, and we had been performing in Rovinj. It's this beautiful city on the Adriatic Sea. And this lady comes up to one of our students and starts talking to her and says, last year in Slovenia, I came to Christ because of this same group. I met them in Slovenia, and I came to Christ through this group. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
A year later. And God, I remember just thinking, man, Lord, thank you for letting us see the fruit of our ministry. So one of the questions that we ask a lot, and we love this question because people just respond to it. But the question is, if God could do one miracle in your life, what would you want him to do? And we always say, and if you don't believe in God, that's okay. Pretend that you believe in God. Let's imagine that you believe in God. If there was a God out there, what would you want him to do? And it's amazing the things that people come up with. The funniest one or the coolest one time is this young couple said, we want to live forever. That's the miracle we want. We want to live forever. And if God could do one miracle, and we want to live forever. And I remember Mitch goes right into the gospel. Well, let me tell you how you can live forever. It was so cool. He came back. He was so excited. But we've had a chance to pray over people who are sick. Their family members are hurting. We've seen people just start sobbing and crying because they've never had someone approach them like that. And so it really helps our students realize, wow, man, there's so many different ways of approaching people and doing ministry. So, and serving and just sharing the gospel through so many things. And I always encourage students to think about what Paul said in 1 Thessalonians 2:8, that we didn't just share the gospel with you, we shared our very lives with you. And through sharing our very lives with you, we share the gospel. And we love you that much that we share the gospel through our very lives. And so we really encourage the students that, man, the gospel being lived out is sometimes more powerful than sharing it verbally.
Now we're seeing Europe as a place where we really can reach all nations. Can you talk about that? Talk about ministry to non-Europeans in Europe.
Yeah, definitely. We have had the privilege of working with people from Morocco and Holland to the cool thing is in Zelensee, Austria, it's on this beautiful lake. We started going there in 2010 and went there ever since. And a huge population of Muslims come there every year from Arab countries, from Dubai and Kuwait, Qatar. And this place will just fill up in the summertime because they all come for vacation. And so I think God led us there. We didn't know this at the time. We just happened to go there and found this place. and kept coming back. And we've had so many opportunities there to share the gospel with Muslims from Arab nations that are there on holiday. They're there on vacation. And we'll spend 4 days there and doing ministry in the city, in the town, and around the lake. It's been amazing, the conversations that we've had and really share the gospel with Muslims there in that community. So that's just one example. But we've had a chance to do that throughout Europe, everywhere we've gone, encountering different cultures, meet a lot of people that are traveling as well from other countries, like a lot of Spaniards, or get the chance to share the gospel in Spanish with them, or students that speak Spanish get a chance to practice, and a lot of that happens as well. So there's this, especially now, a lot of these countries, there are people that are coming from all over the world and migrating. In London, we're getting a chance to do a lot of ministry with Bulgarians and different cultures, Jamaicans, Turkish people, and Wood Green, and different parts of the city. We've had a chance for the last several years. We are working with Pakistanis and Afghans in Little Pakistan. And literally, when you get off the tube and you go up out of the tube and you walk onto the street, you like, wow, where am I? I am not in London. You feel like you're in another country. So yeah, it's amazing.
Any word as to like how COVID or how this year or the pandemic has changed Europe, or ways that people can be praying differently in light of that?
I've been wrestling with that and praying through all that myself and trying to figure out what that's going to look like. I know that from certain people I've talked to right now with Europe, the way they're handling everything, it's going to be one of those where we have to wait and see. I believe that one thing I do believe that's going to happen is I believe this is going to really open up more opportunities for us to be able to share the gospel. I think it's going to also give us an opportunity to come in and serve Europeans next year in more just very tangible ways. I think where we can be the hands and feet of Jesus, and just, I think it's going to wake up Europe in a new way with what's happening. I really believe so. And so I've been thinking a lot about that and what that'll look like next year for ministry. I was even thinking about it this year if we were to go, some opportunities that we would have differently. So that's one of the things that's been I've been mulling in my mind. What are questions and what are ways that we can engage people in conversations? One of the things that we're going to definitely do next year, a lot more of, is to try to figure out ways to just creatively serve the community, and create those moments where we can actually have FaceTime with people in a way that we've served them. And we're going to do that this year as well. But that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to trying next year.